Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. Blue Sky Studios is an animation company that has gained success in the mainstream, but it's not exactly considered to be in the same leagues as, say, Disney or DreamWorks. They've often been accused of just overproducing forgettable babysitter fodder that panders to children. Personally, I think that a lot of their movies range from being just okay, average, and plain awful. I only think that 2 of their films are great, which is saying a lot because they've made over 12 movies to date. You can tell that they are often unconfident about their films when noticing the heavy marketing of having trending pop stars in their films' voice casts. For this video, I have the difficult task of deciding my choices for the top 5 best and top 5 worst movies that Blue Sky Studios have produced. Keep in mind that these choices are not based on popular universal opinion, but my own opinion. With all that being said, let's start with my picks for the top 5 worst Blue Sky Studios movies. Number 5. Horton Hears a Who. Based on the book by Dr. Seuss, this film is about an elephant called Horton who discovers a flower with a speck on it. This speck happens to contain the world of Whoville. Horton takes up the responsibility of relocating the flower to a safer spot on top of a mountain. Luckily, he can communicate with the Whoville mayor to keep the Whos updated on their moving trip. However, this quest will be tough, because a mean kangaroo wants to squash any idea of a tiny speck world, so she asks a vulture to eliminate Horton's flower. I've always had a problem with this film, and I'm actually surprised that I put it this low on the worst list. This movie's premise could have worked better as a half-an-hour TV special, and you know what? That actually exists, and it's perfectly fine for a 25-minute short. Yet Blue Sky insisted that it needed to be almost 4 times longer. What we end up with are excessive dialogue-heavy scenes and conflicts that drag on. Sure, there are quiet breaks here and there, but when a scene is long and chatty, boy, it can go on. The film never comes off as a clever way of making something tiny seem epic and grand. It's more like boring padding and filler. The original book, which I admittedly haven't read, is apparently one of Dr. Seuss's longer books, but it's hard to get that impression when watching this movie because it seems to be struggling to tell a long story. I do know that some things have been expanded upon, but a couple of these changes are out of spirit with Seuss, and none of them can save the drawn-out pacing. When the film isn't letting a scene overstay its welcome or making a character talk and talk and talk, it's pushing itself to seem hip and cool. From an out-of-nowhere anime parody which does all the obvious jokes we've seen before and looks more like Western animation than Japanese animation, to having the Whoville mayor's son be an emo boy who doesn't talk and hides in a secret fort making music. Way to take an innocent Seuss character and turn it into an excuse to pander to preteens. Now, I know that many people do like this movie. They particularly enjoy its themes of belief and faith, plus consider it to be the best of the Dr. Seuss movie adaptations. But me personally, I just can't enjoy it enough to appreciate what it's trying to say. I much prefer the 1970 TV short. It's tighter paced, more timeless, way less annoying, and still manages to get across the themes and lessons intended. Number 4. Ferdinand. Ferdinand is a wholesome bull who would rather smell flowers than be violent, and when his father doesn't come back from a fight, he decides to run away. Fortunately, he's taken in by a little girl called Nina, who looks after him with love and affection. However, when Ferdinand accidentally causes a ruckus at the local town's flower festival, authorities ship him back to his childhood bullfighting ranch. Ferdinand becomes determined to escape again, but when he learns that the bulls never survive their fights with matadors, he decides to save the other bulls too. This film had so much potential. It could have been a movie to really shake up Blue Sky's reputation, helping the public and critics see that the studio can make something intelligent and challenging. Not to mention, Ferdinand is a great role model to children and such a lovable character. Sadly, even though the film is capable of pulling off dramatic moments, it always cops out straight after. Like, there's a touching scene where a bull confesses that he misses another bull who's been taken to the slaughterhouse.
I mean, how many times did I tell him? You gotta get out of your head, man. You gotta control your fears, you know? But he wouldn't listen. Sorry.
It's okay to feel bad, Bones.
You won't tell anyone about this, will you?
I won't say a word.
But this heartfelt scene is jarringly followed by a stupid, goofy dance-off sequence. This movie also builds up the slaughterhouse as this sinister, foreboding place. Then when we finally go inside, it's treated like one big joke and an excuse for slapstick comedy. Way to kill the story's tension and undercut your protest against animal cruelty. It's like this film isn't entirely confident and brave enough to tackle the topic it chose to do. It wants to seem like it has the guts to make a mature kids movie that criticizes bullfighting, but it keeps falling back on the comforts of easy ways to pander to children, making for a tasteless and tonally confused movie. In addition, this film has the most annoying animated character I have ever seen in a movie. Lupe the Goat is a frustratingly irritating comic relief sidekick. She tries way too hard to be funny with her awful noises, hyperactive energy, and constant verbal diarrhea.
Oh, here?
She's a character that I hated so much, I came super close to leaving the cinema just to escape her terrible personality. Ferdinand could have been on my top 5 best list, it really could have, especially when it has breathtaking moments like this. But it has a huge tonal control problem that shows a lack of confidence in itself and its audience. It does not have the courage to educate kids on animal cruelty and bullfighting without the aid of inappropriate, over-the-top comedy, which makes it impossible for me to respect its intentions. Number 3. Rio 2. In this sequel to Rio, Blue and Jewel are now married with kids, but Jewel doesn't like how Blue is raising their children to adapt to a domesticated lifestyle. So when they learn that there's maybe a flock of Spix's macaws out there in the wild, the family travel in search of their species. To their amazement, the flock does exist, and is shockingly led by Jewel's long-lost father. Meanwhile, Nigel has become a street attraction and is filled with vengeful rage against Blue. He manages to escape, deciding to work with a poisonous frog called Gabby to plot his revenge on Blue. Oh boy, this movie is a confused mess. It doesn't know what on earth it wants to be about, going with way too many plot lines, including the children learning about appreciating the wild, Blue leaving behind his domesticated lifestyle, auditions for the Carnival, Nigel's revenge on Blue, Gabby's crush on Nigel, Blue feeling like he has to compete with Jewel's childhood friend Roberto for his wife, Blue trying to impress Jewel's dad, a rival flock of birds, a team of loggers illegally destroying the trees, plus Tulio and Linda searching for the Spix's macaw flock. This is an overwhelming amount of plots to keep up with. It's like Blue Sky ended up taking all of their potential ideas for a Rio sequel and squashed them together into a 90-minute movie. To make matters worse, everything I loved about the first Rio is gone here. The movie amps up the frantic comedic energy so much and has so many things happening in its story that I can't appreciate the exotic atmosphere at all, plus the charming laid-back vibe of the original is never recaptured again. Oh, and what did they do to Nigel? Not only does he have to phone in an uninspired revenge motive, but he's also reduced to being an unfunny, pathetic punching bag, completely devoid of all the charisma and threat that made him enjoyable in the first movie. I didn't expect anything amazing from Rio 2, but this was just a disaster. Number 2. Ice Age: Continental Drift. In this fourth Ice Age film, Manny's daughter Peaches is rebelling against her father by sneaking into team parties so she can get closer to her crush Ethan. This leads to Manny and Peaches having a falling out, at the worst time too, as the continents are breaking apart and drifting away from each other. Manny must reunite with his family, but there's a herd of pirates who want Manny to join their ship. Can Manny get back to his daughter and save their relationship? This was the point in the Ice Age franchise where the series lost me. I could tell that the nostalgia and success of the first film was being milked for all it was worth from here on in. Continental Drift has no ambition to be the next faithful chapter in the Ice Age films. It's a factory-produced obligation. This is most evident in how predictable and unoriginal it all is. Oh look, a film about an overprotective father and his child being swept apart after a fallout. Such a fresh new idea for a film setup. Ah, a group of cute little creatures with their own language who serve as minions for our protagonists. Such a clever and unique idea that's in no way attempting to replicate a trend. Hey, Sid's grandma keeps talking to a beloved pet that no one can see. There's no way her pet is real and will save the day. Oh my god, her pet is real and saved the day. Oh look, one of the pirates is a female saber-toothed tiger. Will she end up switching sides and become Diego's mate? Wow, it really happened. Pinch me. I was bored out of my mind watching this film because it has nothing fresh or inventive to offer. I can tell exactly where it's going and can't believe how hard it's trying to capitalize on more successful films. Its only saving grace is the pirate captain, brilliantly voiced by Peter Dinklage.
Morning, sunshine! Let me be the first to extend the hand of friendship.
That's your foot.
Number 1. Ice Age Collision Course. In this 5th Ice Age film, Manny and Ellie are upset to learn that Peaches wants to move far away once married to her fiancé. On top of this, a giant comet is going to hit Earth and wipe out all of the mammals. All thanks to some spaceship antics caused by Scrat. So, Buck has an idea. He wants to attract the comet to a certain spot in order for it to be contained. This is it, the lowest of the low for Blue Sky. Gone is all the charm of the first Ice Age. In its place, the most desperate film that Blue Sky has ever made. The comedy is so overdone, trite and forced that it makes the characters come off as annoying as hell. Collision Course also goes to extreme lengths to make everything seem epic, but the Ice Age films have done the whole end of the world narrative so many times now that it's become tired and boring. How do you drain out all the excitement of the apocalypse? But what offends me the most about this travesty is that Manny still hasn't learned to stop being a possessive and overprotective parent. Every lesson has been forgotten, also this sequel can go back to the status quo, meaning that we're stuck with a manipulative and aggressive Manny who is hard to like or sympathize with. Ice Age 5 scrapes the very bottom of the barrel to keep a dying franchise alive through sheer manic desperation. It's a film that cemented Blue Sky's poor reputation as an Ice Age sequel factory and serves as the studio's weakest effort. So those are my choices for the top 5 worst Blue Sky Studios films. What about my picks for the best? Well, let's find out. Number 5. Rio. Blue is a Spix's macaw who lives peacefully with his owner Linda, happy and content in a domestic lifestyle. However, that all changes when Linda agrees to help save Blue's endangered species by taking him to a lab in Brazil to see if he can mate with a female Spix's macaw called Jewel. This matchmaking plan doesn't go well though, as Jewel wants to escape the lab, longing to return to the wilderness. Unfortunately, when Jewel attempts to flee, the birds are captured by a poor boy called Fernando, who sells them to some smugglers. Jewel and Blue manage to break free from their cage, but then things get really complicated because they're chained together now. Jewel wants to go live in the wild and Blue desires to return to his human friend Linda, so a bunch of friendly Brazilian birds agree to help break their chain by going on a long adventure. This film may not have the most imaginative or original story, as it's all about getting from point A to point B while a villain chases our heroes, with not much happening between those destinations. In spite of this, the movie manages to charm me on its simplicity, atmosphere and characters alone. Its depiction of Rio is so beautiful and sunny, giving the film a lovely inviting feel that relaxes me. Oh, and the Carnival sequence is so colourful and bright, it really makes me smile. The central romance may be a little rushed and cliché, but it's still incredibly sweet and heartfelt for what it is.
Our supporting characters are adorably likeable, giving the film a happy, positive vibe, especially when they're singing a fun or romantic song. The villain, a cockatoo called Nigel, is so intimidating that he frightens humans, but he's still got a campy sense of humour too. Rio may not be groundbreaking or anything, but compared to most Blue Sky films, it stands out as one of the more enjoyable movie experiences that they have to offer, thanks to its colourful imagery, gorgeous location, and uplifting atmosphere.
Number 4. Epic. 17-year-old MK has just moved in with her eccentric father, Professor Bomber, but he seems to be always distracted with his research into tiny people who live in the forest, which MK finds ludicrous and has no interest in. In fact, there really are miniature beings living in the woods who are in danger from the evil Boggins, who want to bring darkness to the Queen's specially chosen pod. When MK chases Ozzy the dog into the forest, she ends up finding the Queen dying after being attacked by the Boggins. Her Majesty not only shrinks down MK, she also gives her the pod to protect. With help from 2 leaf men warriors called Nod and Ronin, as well as pod keepers Grub the Snail and Mub the Slug, MK travels far to take the pod to Nim the Glowworm. I'll be the first to admit that this film lacks the world building needed to get audiences to care about its setting, the very thing that's in danger of destruction. Yes, the forest itself is very beautiful, but the world's residents are sidelined into being nameless nobodies. They're mainly just background characters or excuses for jokes, minus one exception. Plus, the comic relief gastropods are insufferable, being more desperate and obnoxious than actually funny. Only MK Nod romance subplot is both unnecessary and poorly developed, making their eventual kiss very out of nowhere and pointless. Of course, let's also not forget the distracting similarities that Epic shares with Ferngully. But when I put aside these flaws, I can appreciate what Epic manages to pull off, a Blue Sky movie that actually knows how to be subtle and mature. For example, it has this clever juxtaposition between its 2 universes, a new plant in danger of being corrupted by darkness in the miniature world, and a decaying father-daughter relationship in our world. The film never patronizingly spells this out to the audience, it lets us work it all out ourselves. I also love how this film is both about a father neglecting his daughter for science and a daughter who refuses to understand the levity of her dad's ambitions. The film never shames one over the other, both parties are guilty of not trying to make the effort to connect as a family, and amazingly, both MK and Bomber end up saying sorry. It's an impressively mature resolution for a children's film, and a great twist on the workaholic dad cliché. But there's no denying that the real appeal of this film is its visuals. Blue Sky rarely let us appreciate the artistic merit of their rendering skills, but this film thankfully slows down for many scenes so that we can really take in the atmospheric nature. I used to class Epic as one of Blue Sky's more average entries, but on new viewing I can see so much worth praising, more than just the positives I've mentioned. It's flawed and not exactly entirely interesting, but it deserves recognition as one of the better executed Blue Sky films. Number 3. Robots. Ronnie Copperbottom is a young robot who idolizes a famous inventor called Big Weld. He wants to become an inventor himself, even though his family is very poor. After tiring of waiting for things to get better, Ronnie heads to Robot City to meet Big Weld and apply for a job. To his disappointment though, a shiny high-class robot called Ratchet has taken over Big Weld's company, who rejects poor Rodney's pitch. While in the city, Rodney befriends a broken-down robot by the name of Fender, who takes Rodney in to live with his family and friends. Rodney teams up with his new pals to uncover what dastardly plans Ratchet is up to and bring Big Weld back to the boss chair. Yes, I found this film's critique of high-class privilege to be too on the nose and preachy. Sure, this movie's comedy is desperate and juvenile like most Blue Sky movies. And of course, Fender is yet another annoying Blue Sky comic relief who won't shut up and is frantically overdetermined to get audience laughs. However, I do have reasons why I put this movie on my best list. The setting of Robot City is incredibly unique and remarkable, one of the most original worlds I've ever seen in an animated movie. It has a distinct retro look without seeming dated, and its giant inventions are pretty fun. I also love the character of Rodney and who he stands for. He's a working class hero with an unstoppable ambition to invent and a genuine interest in helping his fellow poor robots. doing everything he can to make major positive change to Robot City. He's a great role model for children, inspiring them to empathize with the unfortunate and never give up on what they want to do in life. But the film also presents a realistic view of how challenging doing a career you want can be, that nothing is perfect, sometimes the bad guys can be in power, and even your heroes can go through slumps or let you down. This isn't cynical, it's a valuable perspective to give alongside the message of hope, because being level-headed is just as vital as staying optimistic. But I think that the real heart of the film is Rodney's bond with his father. This is a man who taught his son to appreciate what he's been given, works his screws off to support his family, even giving up his music career for them, and believes that his child can become a famous inventor even though it's a big risk to try. Robots isn't a film that breaks the mold for Blue Sky. It still has many of the irritating traits you'd expect from most of their movies, but it remains true to its core spirit all the way through, motivating audiences to never give up on their dream careers while being prepared for unfair obstacles, and to always remember the existence of the poor, which makes me sort of admire the film despite my grievances with it. Number 2. Ice Age. Diego is a saber-toothed tiger who has been assigned by his pack to steal a baby from a community of humans, but he ends up losing it. The pack leader orders Diego to find the baby again, but it's now in the hands of a goofy sloth called Sid and a grumpy mammoth named Manny. Diego convinces Manny and Sid that he'll help them return the baby to its family by offering to use his tracking skills to find the way, when really, he's setting them up for a trap. This is a simple film, but sometimes the basics are all you need, and the execution can take these essential ingredients somewhere special. Ice Age is a straightforward tale that's enriched with strong character development, bonding all three animals together and pushing them to change in their own arcs. Manny opens up to connecting with others after losing his family, immature Sid embraces the responsibility of protecting a child, and Diego develops compassion for the animals he was assigned to trick. The most powerful moments in this film are either dialogue-free or have very little words, yet they get across more than blatant exposition dumping or a comic relief's verbal diarrhea could ever say. The film does address how animals must feel being hunted, but it never portrays the humans as evil cartoon caricatures or sends them on a preachy guilt trip. Instead, it lets them naturally interact with wildlife to see their caring side in person, showing rather than telling, which is a golden rule of cinema. Ice Age also knows not to go overboard with its comedy. It can be energetic, but not to the point where it kills the mood or gets annoying. Heck, most of the humor actually comes from the dry, witty, and quiet banter between the mammals.
My feet are sweating.
Do we have to get a news flash every time your body does something?
Doing it for attention, just ignore him.
Even though Ice Age is the studio's first ever feature, it's actually heaps and bounds better than a huge majority of their later films. Using its primitive animation to focus on a down-to-earth story about finding the right family, even if they're not your species, while also encouraging each character to discover themselves along the way too. In fact, after seeing the worst of the Ice Age sequels, I've grown even more fond of the original. Number 1. The Peanuts Movie. Based on the comic strips by Charles Schulz, the Peanuts movie is about a little boy called Charlie Brown, a clumsy and awkward child who struggles to excel at most things. When a new red-haired girl joins his class, Charlie falls in love, and with help from his loyal dog Snoopy, he tries to win the heart of his crush. The Peanuts movie is a charming and endearing slice-of-life film, which may not blow audiences away, but remains special to me. I connect to it on a deep and resonant level, as someone who feels insecure and isn't that skilled in a lot of areas. It's a film that reminds me to love myself and opens my eyes to what I can achieve without even noticing. But most importantly, it makes me really happy. The beautiful art style that renders the comic strips into gorgeous CGI, the lovable quirky characters, and the laugh-out-loud comedy all make for a movie that brings a huge smile to my face. It's a film that celebrates the power of optimism, motivating audiences to keep trying and to never surrender to your self-doubt. But it's also a coming-of-age tale that authentically captures having a crush as a child.
What are you in for?
Have you ever had that feeling when you can't stop smiling?
Huh? Your heart pounds inside your chest? You try to stand, but your knees become weak?
While Ice Age might do some things better, the Peanuts movie just manages to speak to me in a more personal way and has a more uniquely vibrant personality. It exhibits all the qualities of what Blue Sky can do well when they put their mind to it, while retaining a magic and warmth that always cheers me up. It's movies like this that make me believe that Blue Sky can become as respected and beloved as its more successful competitions. They just need to be more consistent with their quality control and take more risks as a studio. The Peanuts movie is a gem, a film that will stay with me always, and I hope Blue Sky make more movies like it in the future. I wish good luck to Blue Sky, and fingers crossed that Spies in Disguise is a surprise hit. So, those are my choices for the top 5 best Blue Sky movies. If you were to do this video, what would your countdown look like? Let me know in the comment section below. I've been Jambareeqi and I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, then feel free to subscribe, like and share. So, what am I going to be doing for the next top 5 best and worst video? Well, after some thinking, I've decided that I'll be covering Sony animation next. Cheerio, folks.